Welcome to our Saturday Regenerative Neighborhood Framework call. As most of you know, and we have some new participants joining today, this is a call series where we are working to gather resources, ideas, and existing projects that are out there that all are in the direction and providing service to create regenerative neighborhoods. Regenerative neighborhoods are resource resilient and community lifestyle real estate developments. So places where people are living, that have water, food, energy, and waste systems, and that create an element of intentional community lifestyle. People, working on things together, at the very least, meeting regularly to share a dinner or to have some meetings about things going on in the community. It's, a niche of a niche of a niche. Sustainable land project with resilient systems and then community human systems attached. Our goal over the last 12 weeks that we've been having calls is to come together, connect with each other. Here are some of our goals. Connect with each other on the calls. We've been exploring specific macro topics. Today's macro topic is technology. Other topics we've covered are ecosystem, human systems, hardware, and economy. To go through these macro categories, each 2-week block, we go through one of the macro categories and we explore each of the subcategories within it. As an example, these are the subcategories here in technology that we've started talking about last week. Things like connectivity, internet, phone, and radio, software applications, data, large language models and AI, robotics, IoT and sensors, 3D mapping, blockchain, and gamification. These are some of the subcategories that fall within technology. If anyone can think of any, we're always open to receive more ideas. I'm going to put a stack of sticky notes here. In case anyone has any ideas, you're free to jump on this Miro board. Sonia, can you share the link to the Miro board, please?
Yes.
On the chat. Yeah, we use this interactive Miro board just as a little zoom out here so you can see what's been going on. Starting with a bit of a short intro here of all the topics we've covered. The big why, how, and what we're doing. We started a directory, but not everyone added their pictures. As we've been going through the calls week by week, we've been gathering some stuff here specifically focused around our values and our community culture. The things that we hold dear as a collective, goals that we're all striving towards, and things that we want to accomplish. In addition to the Saturday calls, on Thursdays, we host a more technical and solution-focused call where we have been using AI to process all of this data that we're gathering. The goal of all of this data is to create a framework being kind of a guide that facilitates the design, planning, development, operating, and growing of one of these regenerative neighborhoods. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a moment for everyone to drop in with each other. Let me let a few more people in. Ian's here. Yes. Hello, Ian. Welcome, welcome. We just did a little intro of the framework calls, what's been going on, what we've done so far. We're about to do some breakout groups just for everyone to say hi to each other for a couple minutes. If you guys are on the call, is there like a little check-in here? I don't know who's here. Maybe we can just do a little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's a...
Yeah, let's do 3 or 4 breakout groups.
Okay, cool. I'm going to do a breakout group real quick. Hey, Patrick, nice to see you.
Nice to be here.
Yeah. Thank you for joining. We're going to do breakout groups so everyone can say hi to each other. If people aren't very active in your group, feel free to jump out and jump to another group. I'm going to do 3 groups to start, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to do it for probably 5 minutes. Share where you're joining from, what brought you to this call. Have you ever lived in community? If so, share a little bit about that and get to know everyone else on the call for a few minutes. All right, I'm sending the groups out. Hey, Theodora, what's up?
Hey, Oscar. It's been a long time.
Yeah, nice to see you, dear. Good timing. We're on the tech call today.
I know. Yeah, I'm really sorry for missing everything up until now. It's been a rough patch, I would say.
Hey, Eckhart,
But
welcome.
yeah. Hello.
Cool. Hi, Jaden. I think we'll just have our own little breakout room here since we're all here, you guys.
I was
Everyone
in
else is
one by
in.
myself. Sorry.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's good. Yeah, let's see. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm still getting like a hang of the breakout room thing, but we'll have our own breakout room. What's up, you guys? Welcome. Nice to meet you, Jaden. Theodora's
Nice to
back.
meet you.
She joined at the beginning for a bunch of calls and has had a little break from the calls. Eckhart will be presenting today. A cool project he's working on with his partner John, I believe.
Cool. Beautiful.
You're on mute, Eckhart. We can't hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah. We talked last time, and so he's going to be doing most of the presenting this time.
Okay, cool. Yeah, does everyone want to do a little intro? Like Jaden, where are you joining us from? How did you find the call? What brought you here?
Absolutely. So I'm based in North Carolina currently, and I saw I believe it was the Need to Grow documentary, and saw, is it Michael Smith's green powerhouse generator in that? And I was like, wow, this is amazing technology. Like, what's this guy doing? Why is this not an implemented solution already? So I did some research on what he was doing, and that led me to the Masterminding Eden project, which then led me to find you guys and get involved there.
Okay, cool.
So I just have a lot of interest in how do we build moving forward in more every way, right? Facing the meta crises.
Right,
So
totally.
yeah, I'm a veterinarian. I've got a lot of interest in really everything, organizational design to living systems as well. So we'll see how that goes. And here's my cat.
Okay, very cool. Welcome, Kitty.
Sorry.
Cool. Welcome to the call, Jaden.
Thank you.
Yeah, Eckhart, you want to share a little background?
Sure. I've always been interested in regeneration even before, I guess, you called it that. I started out by doing habitat restoration as kind of a volunteer slash steward, and then I took some classes in it. This is 35 years ago. And I've just always been interested in design. So kind of connecting the dots and nature and the possibility of not just conserving, but restoring. So all of the above, and making something better from, a restored land, a better experience for humans to come and visit. I'm just wondering if I could quickly, we're just in intro mode anyway, and we're expecting John, and hopefully he'll appear soon. So
I think he's in one of the breakout groups. I'm pretty sure.
I'm not.
John Sarter, right?
Yes. So he's not Okay,
He's on the call. He's on the call. He's in one of the other breakout groups.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see it.
Yeah. We're in a breakout group right now. Well, we kind of stayed in the lobby, but
Okay.
We're here together. Okay, cool. Yeah, Eckhart's going to be sharing a project a little later, and I'm excited to hear more about it.
Yeah.
T, you want to do a little intro?
Yes. So I just finished my bachelor basically and in AI, and I decided that I'm ready to tap out of this whatever is going on here and and basically meet you guys and potentially help build this framework for regenerative communities, which is also kind of like aligning with how I view the world could potentially thrive over this very critical moment in human history. And yeah, I've been here 3 weeks before for also 2 to 3 weeks, but then I had to leave because I had super big burnout and also work all at the same time, 2 jobs and burnout, and I was like, I can't anymore. But now I'm back. So
cool. We're happy to see you. We're happy to share some updates with you as our AI freshly schooled brain. We had a really good call on Thursday, where I'm excited to share this update with Ian as well, where we had like a pretty good breakdown of what each person is interested in and they see as like an important module in supporting this movement of people building communities and connecting them around the world. We'll present that a little bit later on the call as well.
Perfect. One question about this. I know you, Vic, and Ian, and a few others actually, were quite active in the tech chat. And I heard about I've seen some model, or like there's a name for it. I forgot its name, but like it's there. It's actually part of the chat.
Yeah. Ian set up like a full-time running agent in our Telegram chat.
Yeah.
And the agent is helping as we have conversations in the chat. We're sending documents to it, and it is right. Ian and Vitaly set up a unique way of it remembering things in a knowledge graph. We're going to share that a little bit on the call in a minute.
Cool.
And so it's remembering things that we're sharing with it, and we're hoping to use that as like the first version of the brain that'll help power the framework. Walking people through building the framework and doing the whole thing. So,
excuse me if I'm asking the wrong questions, but is it a pre-trained model, or is it done with some kind of Claude or something?
It's a pre-trained model, so we're using Minimax, which is like one of the frontier models, but it's like 10 times less expensive than Claude Code, for example.
Nice.
So it's more cost effective, great for processing. Yeah. We're pretty excited about it. It's working pretty well right now. Vic, you want to do a little intro?
Hey, y'all.
Hey, Vic.
What are you doing?
Shave's looking good, Vic. Looking sharp, buddy.
Yeah. Now I show my fat. I got to lose about 70 pounds. Does this program work on that?
Soon it will.
Anyway, I spent my week coming up with a list of what things could I do to keep myself from going insane. I'm working on that list right now. I'll get back to you and see how that goes.
Oh no.
I'm also working on the second book in the micro community design, sort of bootstrapping. What does it take for us to build the community of a future? And I use the word community. It's becoming more and more clear to me that the future is not better business. It's actually better community, and that anything and everything is going to happen within community that is going to be evolutionary healthy. So I got really hooked on it. So I'm in that realm, and wrote a book on the reason why we are caught here. I call it soul debt. and there's a whole system that's designed to take away or taint our soul, basically. And now I'm working on a book called The Singularis, which is a play on why do we think the singularity is the ultimate, it's just going to happen. It's just another story. Somebody came up with it and it got hot. So now everybody's just sort of waiting for technology to take over humanity. And anyway, so I'm working on that one. And
Cool.
yeah, it kind of makes you insane.
And Vic is our tether to the human experience. You know, as these calls have gotten a little bit techie here and there of like, oh, we need to build a system, we need to build a product. Vic is always our lasso and, you know, grounding to community is human first. And we always have to put that at the center of our decision process. So Vic, big shout out to you for that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys. So the breakout groups have now been closed. Everyone is rejoining the main group. Is this everybody? Is everybody here? I think so.
I think so. So John and I think Eckhart as well are going to present right now. So we're going to start with
beautiful.
the Flyline presentation. You were just saying, John, that you don't really have slides. If you want, I can just pull up the website. The visuals there were pretty informative.
Sure. Yeah, or maybe I see
And
Eckart's on
Eckhart's
the call
here,
now, so
yeah.
maybe Eckhart, do you have slides on Fly Ranch?
You know, John Randolph was supposed to, he said he was going to come, and
That's all right. Well, Sonia can
Yeah.
just pull up the website. We can go.
I think
pull up
Website
that.
would be good. You guys are the source.
yeah, all I was going to do is, since I really presented last time, and I didn't want to repeat myself, what I could do is at this juncture, I could just share, not the best at, I know it sounds silly, but let me just share at, oh, okay, here we go. Let me just share.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to start by sharing the, so this is the website. You can see it, it's still accessible. And then once you go in there, you can see our kind of cohort of 50. We're one of them. So there, and each has its own story, but essentially, so what it was is every year or two, there's an international competition, and it so happened that that year in 2020, you'll see it here, they were near Burning Man, and Burning Man Foundation actually owns Fly Ranch. And so it's like 3,800 acres. And, you know, a Burning Man, as many you know, I mean, I have not been there, but has a reputation for burning and creating a lot of amazing art, but also destruction is part of it. So with this, it'd be just the opposite. It'd be restoring the ecosystem. And there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of rehabilitation. And so we would help facilitate that through our designs. And ours here, as you can see it, I've got another image of it, is a walkway, essentially. It's a boardwalk. But what's unique is it starts at the, trying to see if a better picture is in order. It starts at the most famous, really, point, arguably, of the entire landholding, and that is this, amazing geyser. I'm going to see if I can share this.
And this is all on that property that you mentioned.
Correct.
The Burning Man
Yes.
Foundation. Okay, 3,800 acres. Wow.
Yeah, and John and I are having this brainstorm, just he and I, one Friday night, and I was saying, what do you know about what do you know about sacred geometries? And he just said, well, I'm familiar. I didn't know much. I was just staring at a book that I had on the shelf, a tiny little book. And less than 2 weeks later, he came up with this idea of a Fibonacci sequence, which is found throughout nature. Let me try to share this one.
Cool.
This is a different perspective because we got published in a book. And so basically, do you see the same thing? Oh, okay. Hopefully now you see the cut sheet from the book that we're in. So
we can see, we're looking right now at the website still. That says Flyline.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah. You can
I
switch things if you want to like stop sharing and reshare again.
Oh, it's okay. I just want to briefly show a different perspective, and I'll show that one. So it allows you to you know,
There it is. Yeah.
yeah, the hardware involved. And again, this is not set in stone, but so this is an awning. So the light goes in, diffuses it in different colors. And yeah,
Cool.
and so you have passive, the value of passive light, you have protection in certain parts, not all, throughout the year. You have that. And what it basically does is it creates, the idea is creates a platform for visitors to experience the arts, science. There's going to be restoration work, scientific, wet rooms, dry rooms for habitat studies and revegetation. It's I'm struggling here with trying to get it to the right percentage magnification. Oh, here we go. So all those things. And it's reprogrammable. So what we would have is along the route, we would have places where we would have Quonset huts, which is essentially a barracks, which could have a skin of any veneer you'd want. So you can make it look like anything. And they're mobile and they don't require skilled labor to create. And so that's the gist of it. So you have a place for people to celebrate this geyser safely, 24/7, literally. And even if you're handicapped and you're in a wheelchair. So we need power. Well, we generate our own power. We need to be able to move that power smartly. And so we have a kind of overall a fairly low tech solution, but here's where it gets interesting. We need to convey that power, and we have at the kind of the backbone of it, we have the microgrid, and that's where I pass it over to John, because we need a state-of-the-art microgrid that works not just in one direction, but two directions. So the vehicles there are, when they're doing nothing all day for several days, they're plugged into the grid. They can enjoy a premium for the grid tapping out of that, and then it goes in all kinds of different directions, and they get a little kickback for that. They get an incentive. And then when they're ready to go on their way, they've got a full charge and they're ready. And then with all that, the grid is stabilized and reliable. So let me pass it over to John at this point. Hopefully I've stopped. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. John, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So the reason that they thought about and bringing me into this is because I'm involved in this bidirectional EV space, and the idea would be that we would use our technology. What we have is a solar inverter combined with a 2-port bidirectional EV charger system.
Mm-hmm.
So it enables you to directly DC charge an electric vehicle and then bring the power back out when you need it or want it at different locations. It's mobile because the vehicle can move around to different points, and the different locations that Eckhart was talking about on the Flyline, those could be powered. Those could be parking locations, either by a lightweight vehicle that could travel on the boardwalk or by parking areas for larger electric vehicles, all the way up to, depends on how much power you need, all the way up to semis if you need it, really. But, ideally, you don't need that much power. You really don't. If you use energy more efficiently, the battery in a car can power an average home for, close to a week. So that's really all you need. And the idea behind this is to create a microgrid using our tech and electric vehicles that are mobile to move to different stations where needed. So what I can do is give you a little bit of a presentation on our technology. Let me go to this.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a cool moment to share all this because it's both infrastructure, energy. You're doing environmental, kind of nurturing as well, which is really great. I see the water. Yeah. There's like a water thing as well. It's cool.
Yes. Yeah. There is gray water reuse, and there's an embarrassment of water considering it's a high desert. But we can always do more with less, and that's what nature is all about. So why not demonstrate that?
Right.
All right. So this is the company. We're called Decibel. The company's based in Montreal. We have a branch in California where I work. We also have a presence in New York and in France also. So we're already moving into Europe. The plan is to go globally because really what this represents is a massive storage potential for renewable energy to be able to use wherever you want it, you know. And our motto is we deliver energy so you can live a life without compromise. So when we came into this space, kind of the state of the art was sort of a patchwork of limited, inefficient, expensive, and unintelligent industrial devices, basically. That was kind of a conglomeration, which it kind of still is. There's a few companies that have tried to put it all together, but it hasn't been terribly successful from our viewpoint. So we decided to make this all something that you could put in one device. We call it Aura. And it's basically the world's first home energy station, where you can take your solar or wind, you know, whatever type of renewable energy you have, store it in your vehicles for use later. And it has a number of different applications. In the grid-tied world, you can store that energy, you can sell it back to the grid at peak time of use and actually monetize your vehicle while it's sitting there doing nothing else. And in an off-grid world, you can use it for your entire you know, energy storage needs, basically.
And so the idea is these stations, when you have it in the car as a battery and you move to another station, you can plug in the car to that station and it pulls from that battery. That's what makes it two-way. Okay, cool.
Exactly.
And that's unique. Are there other businesses doing something like this?
Well, there are other companies that are starting to do bidirectional chargers, but ours is the only one that combines it with a solar inverter, so it's all in one device.
Oh,
basically.
Cool! Nice.
Yeah. And then we're also partnered with LG Energy currently, and we're looking to other battery partnerships as well, so that you can have a stationary battery there when the car is not there to power essential loads like maybe a refrigerator or something like that.
Okay, makes sense, right? So having even a second battery that, right, as this charges and gathers, it stores the car and then it stores the stationary battery. So if the car is not there, you still have a charge.
You still have some power, right? Yeah. But you need, by virtue of having the vehicle as the main battery, you need a much smaller stationary battery just for essential systems when you're not there, basically.
Right.
And so what we've come up with is a 4-in-1 multifunctional, super energy efficient. It's energy efficient by virtue of keeping things in the DC side as long as possible, because the more you invert energy, the more you lose, basically, right?
Right.
It's cost effective by virtue of the fact that it sells at about the same price as a comparable solar inverter alone. So you basically get all the bidirectional technology and charging capability virtually free.
Nice.
And it's also has built-in software to optimize your energy flows throughout whatever sources you have, be it grid, battery, solar, and the vehicle, of course.
Cool. So it's solar panels to this box. This is like your main controller for everything.
So you can go solar to the box, to your home or your station or whatever you're trying to power, or you can store it in your vehicle or store it in your stationary battery or any combination of those elements. So this is kind of slide that we're taking the sun, we're charging your home battery, we're powering your home. You don't need the battery during daytime when the solar is producing. You just invert it to AC or keep it in DC to power your systems in your home or shop, whatever it might be. Obviously, we of course have a nice app that goes along with it. You can program it to meet your needs as far as transportation versus energy storage. It's has weather forecasting, so if there's a storm coming, it'll advise you to store more energy. And we're also finding ways to gamify it. So we're going to try to build in some gamification as well, make it fun. Most people don't really geek out on energy the same way that I do, and a lot of my colleagues, but it's important. You know, we all need energy, and this is a great way to store it and give it back. We also have partnerships with aggregators. So this is how you're able to, an aggregator will take multiple locations, multiple EVs, and aggregate them into a larger whole so they can sell power to the grid and maximize the money that the owner gets back. And they take a slice of it as well, of course.
Yep.
Here's our app hub. This isn't very elegant, but it's a really nicely designed and user-friendly app. that you can control everything from the app, the charging, the discharge. You can see what your state of charge is in your vehicle, and how much your home is using. It also has a section over here where you can actually see what your CO2 savings are, and it'll tell you how close to net zero energy you are as well. This is a program that we just got a grant. Well, it's about a year ago. We got this grant from the CEC, a $52 million grant. And in it, we're giving rebates of up to $13,800, which is more than the cost of the equipment, for people who install this in their homes. And the grant is for 50% disadvantaged communities and 50% market rate. So it's a way to try to get this into the hands of people who otherwise might not be able to afford it, basically.
That's just located in the state of California?
That grant is for California, but there are other programs and other grants that are coming across, not so much federally anymore at this point in time, unfortunately, but in other states. There's other incentives. We're working with a group in Massachusetts to do a similar type of thing. So it's a technology that has a tremendous amount of promise, and not only is it good for the people and being able to self-power, but the grid and the grid operators, the utilities are starting to see the value in it. This is a way that they can avoid spending money on massive grid infrastructure, and instead use a distributed system using these batteries.
Good question.
Okay, very cool.
John
Yeah.
Eckhart. You guys are working on some cool shit here. I'm trying to understand what it is, because to me it looks like an energy management system. So it's bidirectional, which is unusual, right? You're also saying
the
it's
charging.
a battery.
Well, no,
There's
the
no
vehicle,
battery, and it's not holding
No.
power, right?
Right.
It's directing where it's needed. My car,
Yes.
my house. So it's also on the power line. So it's looking at the whole thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's designed actually to be grid connected so that you can send power back to the grid, help support the grid and monetize it while you do so.
So it helps to be more efficient with the transfer, because most solar systems do put it back on the grid if you're overused. You don't need the power, right? You can
Right.
flip it, but this is making it easier?
Well,
Is
it's
it more
what you can
efficient?
do. It's more efficient because it keeps the power in DC longer,
Okay.
but it enables you to. So like right now in California, for instance, they're rolling back the net energy metering, they call it, and they're not paying you very much when you send power back to the grid. Like they're paying you pennies on the dollar, basically.
No figure.
Yeah, you're good. Utilities are good for that, aren't they?
Yeah.
So this enables you to store the power during the day when you'd be throwing it away, basically giving it back to the grid, and then send it back during peak time.
Because it detects that your batteries need to be charged, whether it's your car
Right.
or your
Or
Tesla house battery, whatever, right?
Or you can store it during the day and then send it back to the grid in the evening when the grid really wants it, and they'll pay you more for it.
But then you got to
or
have
like
batteries
if I
to do that, though.
No, the car is the battery.
Oh,
You
you're
either got it,
using
yeah,
your
right,
car.
right,
Okay.
and
right.
this, if I had
Yeah.
like the correct hookup, like let's say I had a battery bank on my bus and I had a second alternator on my engine, and then as I'm driving around and filling up energy onto those batteries, I can take that energy and put it back into the grid, and then I can actually get some kind of like uh,
You
supplemental
get a
income
credit,
from that.
some money for it,
Yeah.
or you can plug it into your house or whatever, your workshop, whatever,
And
and power
charge those batteries from what I gathered from the day that
Yeah.
I was doing
Yeah.
work or what have you.
or power it directly,
Mhm.
as long as you're plugged in. It
So
connects
is the
directly to the.
greatest challenge hooking up to all of these different power systems? I mean, you can't just go and slap it on the wall. You got to be able to connect to the solar and to the power grid and to your car, right?
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah.
your greatest challenge?
Probably the greatest. Well, one of the most difficult things is getting a interconnection permit from the utility to be able to send that power back, and
Yeah.
that's in California. A process called Rule 21, where you have to go through this process. They check what you're doing, and after a couple of months or so, they'll give you permission to export, basically.
Right. But
But
anything
until
on the land that you own, your car or whatever, but you still need transfer units or something that your box can read, right? It's not
transfer
plug and
unit,
play. Is that some of your
well,
affiliates
it
or?
has to be wired into your panel, into your electrical panel. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it's straight into the panel.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
But as you correctly said, I think it's true, isn't it, John? If you own your own land and you're way out in the boonies off grid, then no one has dibs on that, right?
Yeah,
Unless
right. You could
there's an
use just
exception.
self-power in that case, right? You're not going to connect to the grid. You're just going to self-power. And this gives you the
Right.
potential, it gives you a massive battery on wheels to be able to store your renewable energy with, basically.
But could you sell it to if you're way out in the boonies, could you sell it to your friends who are also way out there and are doing it in a more, prehistoric way? Would that be, would you need a
Well,
exemption?
you're talking about developing a microgrid, and there's places
Yeah.
where you can do that, and there's places where you can't, you know.
All right.
Although if like a lot of tribes in California are developing their own energy systems and their own
Huh.
microgrid, because on
Uh-huh.
tribal land the same rules of the utilities don't apply. So they have more freedom. But there's different places in the world. I think one it's Justin, you're in Nicaragua, right? I doubt there's rules against microgrids down in Nicaragua. That's probably what you're going to
Everything
develop.
goes here. Everything goes. Almost everything goes.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
You know, and really in a context of, let's say you're going to develop a new city somewhere, right? And you're out in the middle of nowhere, you don't have any grid power. This is one way that you could accomplish that through distributed energy storage in electric vehicles and some stationary batteries to store your renewable energy during the day when it's plentiful, and then, use it at night.
So when you say cars and that's your charge point, you're talking about
Mhm.
electric cars, or
Yes.
you're saying pile up some batteries in the back seat, or
No,
what?
no, electric cars, yeah, would be the way to do it. Yeah.
The PHEVs as well, right? It goes without saying. Like if you have a prime, a Toyota Prime, for example, it's plug-in electric. It could still have gas power, but as long as you're charging, it's a no-brainer. It uses almost no gas throughout the year.
Yeah, we haven't done
That's it.
any
Or
work
no?
with hybrids yet.
Oh,
Um, it's a possibility from a technical standpoint because it still has a battery, yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't
And
end
there's
them. I mean, if you need power out on some non-gridded area, and there's a couple of
Yeah.
electric cars around, you can get
Mhm.
some basic stuff done. I mean, will it run
Oh,
electrical
it'll put
construction
out,
equipment or?
oh yeah, it'll put out 15,000 watts.
It will, wow, yeah.
Yeah. So as a matter of
And
fact,
stop
this,
before the car dries out so you can get home,
well,
right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You set your parameters of where you want it to, start and stop, right? And you can
Right.
change that. It's all adjustable according to your needs and your
Hmm.
driving.
So
Got it.
Well,
Thank you.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you for presenting this, John. And yeah, thank you for sharing this, Eckhart, and bringing this
yeah.
together. It's all of these little solutions lead. Yeah, Eric, go ahead. We have questions.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering, like, so if let's say you had a battery bank that you took out to a construction site and like maybe you had some kind of like smart meter to track how much energy you used for that construction site, like there might be a way that you could use that in
Yeah.
micro
Sure. Yeah.
economics of it. So
Yeah, actually
how
we're
much
we're
energy we
we're
use.
building we're building the system on a mobile cart right now, for auto manufacturers and utilities to test with.
Hmm.
And it occurred to me that, basically that's a mobile generator.
Mhm.
You could take it out to a job site and you want to put a ground rod in so you can be grounded, but drive any EV up to it that's bidirectional and power your site, you know,
Right.
as you're
Yeah.
building. That was sort of, I built this new home I'm living in, finished it a couple of years ago, but my original plan was to use this technology instead of getting a temporary power pole. And
Right. It's
and
like a
now we've
mobile
been able,
generator. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Along with the vehicle, right?
Right.
I
Yeah, very
actually,
cool.
the year we were doing this, I actually went out of my way to call a autonomous ro autonomous robot tractor prototype startup at Stanford. He had found me a couple of years before to pick my brain, and I asked him, could we actually bore the pilings? These are chance anchors, so they're minimally invasive to begin with, but we programmed them to go out and then have them a point source, direct overhead powered. He said, well, it'd be a bit of a challenge, but he said, yes, it's possible. So, these things, and now with Rivians, I don't know if a Rivian can be used as a, how super duty they are. I don't think Tesla, you guys have a relationship with Tesla, right? We probably don't want to have.
We're friendly with Rivian
Oh,
and doing some testing. Tesla, they're like Apple. They want to be their own entire closed ecosystem. So
right.
I mean, the ideal situation would be for this to be, we're OEM agnostic, we're panel agnostic, and to a certain extent, we're battery agnostic as long as it's a high voltage DC battery. But in a perfect world, all these vehicles and all these systems would be interoperable. So you could take any EV anywhere and discharge your power. And that's what would really make it work within a community,
Right.
But it takes buy-in from the manufacturers. So some of the OEMs want to keep their own systems proprietary, so they keep people in their wheelhouse,
Ecosystem,
yeah. So it may take some litigation to kind of change that, and there's some efforts being made on that. Too.
Are you familiar with electroculture and vermicomposting?
No.
So electroculture in it's like using electrical energy to attract worms to a location or create a microbiological life. So you could probably even kill another two birds with the same stone.
You could, yeah.
That's electroculture is subtle, indirect energy, not direct energy.
Oh, okay. So Justin, I'm okay.
I manufacture electroculture antennas, so
cool.
Very versed in that space.
So you don't want to DC charge your worms with
could be too much.
You can high voltage above the ground.
Oh yeah.
We know that helps with plant growth, but that's a different type of electrical.
And by the way, I meant not litigation, I meant legislation, not litigation.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Hopefully not litigation. There's enough of that in the world. Too much.
Okay, very cool, you guys. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. Super cool solution. I've added already, this call is focused on technology and microgrid, even though we definitely covered it in hardware. This is a really interesting thing that takes it out of just being, electrical hardware, solar panel to converter, with the app and with the whole piece of making it interchangeable with different cars. Super cool modular solution to energy technology in the energy space specifically.
Yep. And massive energy storage potential. That's really where the biggest benefit is.
Yeah, definitely. Cool, you guys. Yeah. So again, thank you for sharing that. I added this at the end here of how I invited everyone. Is my screen showing? Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I invited everyone to add if they can think of any other subcategories for this call that is high level technology. I've added here microgrids. Microgrids with smart integrated app, let's say.
Yep. And you can add in technical solutions to that category.
Yeah, very much. Right. That expands, right? Everything is technology today, pretty much, as we scale up things. Okay, cool. So yeah, thank you guys for presenting. That's awesome. Great solution. I definitely see it being super beneficial. I can imagine it for people setting up off-grid places, and they can have that station at their space where they can bring their car, use that as a battery, power all the things they need, collect energy, charge their thing. Super cool. Cool take on it. When do you imagine you guys will have a product that can be sold?
We're installing them now.
Oh, you're installing them already. Okay, nice.
We're going to market. So yeah.
Oh, exciting. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So
how much is one of the units?
The cost is around $10,000, which sounds like a lot, but when you consider that it's the same cost as a comparable solar inverter, the same size, it's actually quite a bargain, really.
Right, because you get all the other stuff as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Very cool.
right.
Okay, cool. So with that, does anyone have any other questions before we start transitioning more into the other topics? We're going to do like a quick run through each one of the subtopics, have a little conversation about each one. Everyone kind of like get their brain juice going. And if you know of any specific projects, share, kind of like this one, right? If energy was the topic, you guys would have been one of the great solutions that people can share.
One
Yeah,
note
any other
before we
topics?
move forward, if you guys have any more questions, just put them on the board on the left side of what Oscar is sharing. You have a spot for questions, and I can pass it to John and Eckhart so they can answer them later, or we can touch on that during the open space.
Questions are here if anyone has any questions here.
Yeah, do you want to show real quick the graph that Ian and Vitaly were working on before we dive into the solutions? I think it's nice to see. Again, the technology calls are on Thursdays, but before we connect to the resources, it's nice to see. Yeah, that's so cool. Ian, I don't know if he's on the call. I don't really see him, and Vitaly, I don't think he's on the call either. They've been working on that software that is a visual representation of the knowledge that we've been collecting. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, this is essentially each dot represents an idea, a person. Each line in between represents a relationship between the person and the idea, or the idea and the solution, etc. And so this is, Theodora, to answer one of your questions, this is one of the ways that we're working on making sense of all of the data that we've been gathering on the calls. You know, each transcript is being uploaded and being shared through the Telegram now, and the agent that's in there. And this is a visual representation of what those relationships look like between, this one's like a financial model, a viability sketch, and what's the thing on the end? And then a real estate sales. So that's like one example of relationships that the LLM is pulling together to help us make sense of all of this data, right? It's a big jump to design a whole society, which is kind of what this starts becoming when you start looking at it at scale, designing from the human systems to the hardware systems and across the board. And I think these last two calls of technology are super important because thanks to technology, we're able to make sense of all of that information and manage it well to create actionable results from it. And so this is why we're going to go now through each one of these categories. I'm going to do like a 2-minute little timer where we'll have time to, if you know of any solutions, for example, connectivity and radio, connectivity, which is internet, phone, and radio. What are some solutions that you know of? Or maybe you have some questions about this topic or some thoughts. I'm going to invite everyone to meet me here on the board. I'm going to bring everyone's cursor over here. Oh, where's it? There it is. And so we're over here in solutions for connectivity, internet, phone, and radio. Also, I'm going to share the link to this board so you guys can go play with it as well on your computers, where the mind graph is. So we can also talk it out. What are some solutions that we all know of for connectivity, internet, phone, radio? Like obviously we've all heard now of Starlink, right? Starlink is probably premier internet in the cloud. I also added on here ham radio, which is just like the kind of radio that truckers use that work on certain wavelengths and work a far enough distance that they can communicate effectively with each other. Another solution that I know of is a mesh network, which is kind of like a local style internet where like house to house can communicate and even like a certain number of meters away and share data in that way. So that's another solution. Does anyone have any solutions they can think of for connectivity? Anything from internet to phone to radio? Any thoughts on this? Like direct, satellite, for internet. In Mexico, we used a lot of these little satellite dishes that it wasn't wired internet, but came from some tower and it came to your receiver. at your place. So that's a good one. Connectivity, a little bit abstract, but I don't know how many other kind of unique scenarios. If you have any questions about this, feel free to also add that. That'd be great.
I have a question about communication systems. For a while, there were a couple of small groups that were looking at, shall we say, natural-based frequencies, things that are biologically less damaging, biological systems, and they were aligned more with the Schumann resonance, the frequency of the Earth.
Yeah.
Has anyone, or this is something we should hold, is, who has done work or knows about work happening now? Because it seems to have all been shut down. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that would be great
if
to
we
know.
keep going higher and higher in frequency, we're now going to go to 6G.
Yeah, sure.
So the frequency rate and the biological impact is so damaging that we're going to spend most of our time just trying to get out of sickness.
Sure.
So I'm really concerned about the momentum of the corporate system. Just keep building towers and keep beaming away with the wrong frequencies. It's not necessarily generating frequencies. It's non-biologically synergistic frequencies. With that, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm putting on here low frequency solutions. So look that up.
Yeah, usually it's lower, but it's not just lower, but yeah.
Yeah.
Gonna move to the Tesla wireless stuff, all of it. And Starlink.
Well, they are,
part
and
of it
that was Tesla's mistake, in my opinion. I don't think he knew what he might be throwing out into the air, but
well, he knew exactly what he was doing, but the consciousness wasn't ready for what he had. It would have been used against humanity worse than what we see now with 5G and 6G. That's why it disappeared. Its consciousness wasn't ready for it, but now it is.
Well, wireless power, Eckhart John, you got to throw that onto your battery, onto
100%.
your little control system.
The power situation's also going to just vanish. I mean, there's little boxes that can create more power, than you can imagine in your home. Just a little 6x6 cube, different technology.
Yeah, I've been seeing more of that, the wireless charger solutions.
Yeah.
Vic, just going back to your comment a second ago about the potential interference with nature. I don't know what the group is and how far they are, but there are people doing work on using interference patterns to cancel out the waves so that we're not having just the scatter radiation from it be the same. And I think there's been success in some communities. I want to say it's I don't know, somewhere in Europe, but.
Well, they have some devices now that I guess we can slap on your phone, and it's doing some of that cancellation or absorption. It reduces the amount of frequencies we're banging on us. I don't trust the technology, but I hear it's
Safe Sleeve with another technology. A friend of mine that has Safe Sleeve for the phones.
Yeah. So these are much larger systems where they're actually putting towers is designed to have destructive interference patterns so that signals are transmitted, but between the community and the periphery of the community, most of the transmission is canceled out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's sort of like the cone of silence and Get Smart. Just cancels out all the frequencies coming in.
That's why they got rid of the
that's how young I am, I guess.
They got rid of the lead paint because the lead actually blocks all this RF energy. That's why they got rid of lead paint. They made it the devil, You're gonna get lead poisoning. No, it's the lead is what blocks. That's why they wear lead aprons when they do X-ray. You still use them.
Sure. Okay.
Anyway, another rabbit hole.
So welcome, Rose. Thank you that was very smart of you to say, let me in the call on the card. Sorry, I didn't see it. Okay, so we just did our first round of solution, kind of sharing and ideation for connectivity, internet, phone, radio. I think the big takeaway here is we definitely want connectivity and we need to be mindful of frequencies. So that led us down this trail of Schumann frequency, internet systems, lower frequency solutions, and then this frequency cancellation. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. A reminder that the more info we put on these cards, that's why I invite you guys to add stuff. We are pulling all of this data and adding it to the LLM as, data points and information for it to be thinking about and helping us gather resources. So feel free, be liberal with the cards, you guys. Add any thoughts you have on there, any other things. Okay, so let's roll to the next topic, which is software applications. I'm super excited about this one. I'd like to share a few updates as well of what we discussed on the last call. But what are some software solutions that come to mind for you guys when we are discussing tools to help build, maintain, and grow regenerative neighborhoods? As an example, I'm just going to share my screen here for 1 second. On our last call on Thursday, we gathered this. It's right to the right of where you are on the board. If you're looking at my screen, we gathered this list of ideas that we are excited as a collective to work on. Things like a tool that helps create the governance documents for your community. A tool that Ian has been steadily pushing ahead here with the collective in the chat, which is a software tool that receives ideas for projects and helps you plan them and then build them out in future steps. One that we discussed here, which is the one that Sonia just brought up, was the visual map of ideas that are being connected. We have a version 1 of that, thanks to Vitaly and Ian. And this has really piqued my interest, so I'm working on one myself as well. We discussed another piece of software that it helps coordinate the individuals within the community. One of the specifics that was requested was a community host bot, that kind of does the service of an HR person, helps onboard people, give them the information they need, and prepare them for getting involved with the collective and with the community. We're building a prototype for ourselves, and we imagine this being a great tool for people starting physical land projects. Another one was that there's too many dashboards in a lot of projects. So there's too many platforms, too many websites with one for project management, one for messaging, another one for to-do lists, et cetera, et cetera. So creating some sort of dashboard that summarizes tools so everyone has access to all the knowledge in the most effective way. One of our participants from the calls, he's launched a project called Eco Hubs, which is kind of a voting platform for projects to track activity. Also super critical. He already has this built, and we are going to be testing it. And then one that Vic is very passionate about and is super important is the human profile clustering tool. So a way to show people who's engaged with each other, what they have in common, and suggest for them to interact and collaborate in some ways. So I just wanted to share that as maybe the summarized list of what all the Thursday calls have led us to and the kind of product list that we've established. Ian, I was excited to share this with you. So I share that just as an example in case also, Theodora, that was for you, in case this is piquing anyone's interest. As our Saturday calls where we are discussing topics are coming to an end, we're going to continue with the calls. They're going to be a bit more focused on building those tools, testing those tools, and getting feedback for those tools from all the participants. So now I give you guys time. What are some software applications, right? Feel free to talk it out, that can help with the creation of communities. Framework. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to share. I have been reflecting on that quite a bit because code and coding agents in general are very hot right now. So we see that providing software is not necessarily a solution anymore because everybody can whip up a page pretty quickly with close to zero technical knowledge beforehand. So one solution that I see is providing a skeleton for an app and then giving each community access and setup for code and GitHub, and then let them make changes by themselves. So if somebody puts here sociocracy is just one governance model. There could be a space for a governance model and voting systems, and then each community would decide by themselves, and they will have the power and the tools to actually code it in real time, and that goes for anything. So the skeleton would be probably like a booking platform or a resident recruitment platform, and all of the other subcategories that we discuss on the calls. And then, yeah, everybody would just do it themselves. So that's the solution that I see, because we were discussing here, and I'm also in a community project where the vision holder is coding a platform for it. What would be a service that we can provide to community projects? And yeah, it seems like having a technical setup and then letting people decide for themselves would be best, which could be a natural progression of these calls. Right now, we are developing the framework, which is a resource library. Next step could be a product that provides that skeleton, which is just the things that you need to think about. And then based on the values and the principles and the purpose of the community, which we have been talking about extensively during these calls, you develop your own tools, your own communication tools, all of the things that you just brought up, Oscar, that you were talking about on the last call would be part of that skeleton.
I agree. Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead, Vic.
I want to add to Sonia, because I think that's really, it's a freeing of creativity with now this decoding ism going on. You don't need to be a coder, but you can create your idea. On the dark side of that, somebody is going to need support. They're going to have a great idea, and it's going to make this thing A work. But they never thought about the other 25 letters in the alphabet and its influence on it. So we could end up with master clusterfuck. In other words, systems that are going to come in and they're supposed to just fix this problem. It's the whole dike thing. Plug one and 6 more leak out. It's not, it's a healthy concern that I ask this. And there needs to be a group to say, let me help you with that. I see how this works. Have you also addressed that it may influence this? You see what I'm saying, Sonia?
Can you give a specific example of that? Like this, you do this and then this happens?
Well, the infamous dike one is, that you stick your finger in to plug the leak.
Sure.
And 3 more leaks happen over there. This is fixed now, but now I've got 3 more leaks over there. I didn't expect that to happen when I stuck my finger in the hole to stop the leak. It's that kind of thing.
Sure. In terms of community, though, I'm trying to imagine what that could be like. I don't know, we set a rule for new residents, and then that creates a problem with existing residents. Maybe that's
it would be a good exercise to see what kinds of things community-based we could come up with.
Right. Yeah. I'm always
not
curious.
As a negative thing, but as a prerequisite to healthy design and the freedom that we have. Because with freedom of creativity also comes huge responsibility for what we make.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Cool. I one of the points you brought up, Sonia, the digital tool that helps an individual or a group that is creating their blueprint for their community, that walks them through that process. I think this will be the first product, the first solution that I'm going to be working on. And I know Ian is also very excited for this tool because he's in his process to create his community plan. So a kind of a digital consultant that walks you through the framework that we've developed over the last few weeks that everyone has access to, by the way. It's in the links on the website, on the RNF page, the Regenerative Neighborhood Framework. Maybe if you want to share that link on the thing, Sonia, that'd be great. Everyone has access to the framework, which right now is just like a document that you can follow manually. But I think the idea with software is that we have a digital tool that helps do things for us. And that's going to be one of the first tools that comes out of this call series as kind of our big goal that we set at the beginning a few weeks ago. Yeah, any other ideas for software solutions that you're like, wow, if there was just a piece of software that did this in community, that would be great. I have one in mind here. I'm going to call it a starboard, which is kind of like the gamification process. You know, like people do stuff in communities, and so many times it goes like under observed. You know, like so many little things have to happen every day that require energy, but we forget to appreciate it or even realize that people are doing all of that work. Everything from taking the trash out to putting labels on things to creating documents of like standard operating procedures within the community so new people can onboard themselves. I think it'd be really cool to have a tool. Like we use a low-tech solution at a lot of projects we've been to, which is like a dry erase board with everybody's names on it. And anytime they do something, they get like a star or they add it on the list of like something they accomplished. And it becomes more of like a celebration board where every dinner we would celebrate each other and appreciate each other for doing the things that it takes to keep the community going. So that would be a cool one that I'm excited about. Yeah, anyone else? Any ideas? Anything you've seen that was like really useful or something you're like, oh, wow, this would be great if this existed? Before we move to the next topic.
Yeah, I put the ones that I know of on the board. Revillager is one of them. It's not very active right now, but it's essentially software to support with community coordination, so scheduling events and communicating. I think it has a voting aspect. I included the app that my friend is working on. There's another app that also has, it's called OASA. And it offers a booking system and I think some other community management tools. So
yeah, it's like CRM, but it's community relationship management, right?
Yeah.
Instead of customer relationship management, you need a CRM for all the members and.
Right, that's the new CRM.
The new CRM.
Relationship management. Cool.
Yeah, cool. Okay, nice. Yeah, this one, OASA is actually the organization of like doing the commons things. It's called Closer, I think, the app, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So software ideas, any other ideas for software? Going once, going twice? Ideas you've seen, ideas you think would be like, oh, that'd be so cool if we had that, right? Part of this collective where we've seen transition over the last 4 years is we started really focused on physical locations and physical build outs. And what we realized is there's still a lot of tools missing to help those projects succeed, right? Getting the land, building places, challenging, but still not as challenging as keeping 100 people coordinated. And that's, I think, a lot of the focus where we've started pivoting our attention is what are the tools that are missing? They exist for big companies, and that's how big companies, take over the world sometimes. We're just trying to figure out the best way to operate as a collective, as a community. So, okay, so we'll go to the next one, data. Any ideas for data that you feel are super important, or maybe any actual companies that you know of that are working on really interesting data solutions? I read a thing yesterday, pretty wild. The first space data center is like officially up now as of 2 days ago, I believe. The company's called StarCloud. And so they are building data centers in space where temperature doesn't matter, right? You don't need to use water to cool down the server farm anymore because it's just cold in space. So they just open a window and they have full-time energy because they're up at a position where the sun is always hitting solar panels. So they're energy independent and temperature independent, which is the two biggest bottlenecks for data centers on Earth. So I just put that one on there. Any other ideas for data? I think One that's important to me for sure is having like your local data saved on your servers. So I feel every community should have what Ian is pretty much doing now at his place in the Cook Islands, which is having a solar grid that powers a server. Just pretty much just a computer that's always running, and you can connect to it via the internet to access memory, access files, and any other kinds of services you have running on there. So I think that's super important for a community. It's also super important to have like local, locally stored important data, and data which is like maps, recipes, tool guides for fixing equipment. I see right now that everyone's concerned about war and stuff happening. I'm seeing a lot of ads for a little thumb drive that has like a copy of Wikipedia, a copy of mechanics manuals, a copy of maps, and all things like this. So I find that to be pretty important at this point.
Just a question. I'm just wondering about having local skills. I mean, a lot of stuff you can do remotely, but when we try to localize at that granular level, like what happens if you don't have the skills on site?
Skills. Well, I think the best we can hope for is to have manuals that walk us through the process of doing things in case like nobody actually knows how to, be a plumber. If we have the manuals on how to install the plumbing for a toilet or how to fix a specific kind of water filter, maybe we won't do the best job on the first run, but at least we'll have a guide that walks us through the process and can help us solve problems effectively with knowledge. I think this is one of the immediate reasons for wanting to have our own information source stored locally, whether, the internet goes down or the server that you're counting on gets erased for whatever reason. At the very least, you have a copy of Wikipedia or some kind of encyclopedia or some kind of, a thumb drive with 1,000 PDFs and books on it that can.
Yeah. I realize for data, it's less of an issue. I'm thinking more of hardware, but I realize we're doing data now, so it doesn't apply as much.
Well, you asked about skills.
It does, though. I think it's a really important question.
Yeah, definitely.
There are three things and it correlates with you, Rose, which is data access, data security, data redundancy, and data distribution.
And backup.
Thus the distribution. So in other words, it's multiple. We no longer have to worry about saving memory, so to speak, at least for a while, unless, the solar flare takes out all the data makers' equipment. I think that we can actually, and it will be required to have a distributed, repeatable data set, not just locally, but elsewhere, which thus the idea of a micro community network globally is that we're all sharing each other's data. But then guess what we get into? Security and access, who gets to and who doesn't get to. So there's a lot of complexity goes up very quickly with data, but it's a requirement of the future community. We can't get around this. So we're going to have to deal with it. And Rose's thing about having somebody on site, a physical local person or people that can deal with it, is going to be crucial as well.
Right, but like, what's a strategy, that you could think of if, like, again, we don't have that like tradesman available and there. What's the next best thing that we could do to be prepared for a situation where we need that specialist?
There's the question, and that's what we got to build on. That's
right.
Good one, Oscar.
Yeah, my first thought is, if we have a manual and the right tools, we can figure it out potentially.
Well, and that's a secondary question. How much do we want ownership of our own data, or is it on an Amazon or a Google server, or, you know,
Ooh, you're on
more and
mute, Vic.
more
Can't hear you.
people that are leaving the existing system don't want the level of control that those systems are putting on us, right? They're stealing our data, they're extracting information from us. We're going to have to rethink.
I don't know if it's just me or I can't hear you, Vic.
You can't hear me?
I think
I,
it's just you. I heard
is it just me?
very
Okay,
well.
sorry. I have headphones on. Maybe that's why. Yeah. My headphone got unplugged.
Well, it's this issue of data extraction. Let's add that to the list, extraction. And how do we turn that around so that it's enabling and empowering communities rather than what can we get from this group to take and, with the Google system and the Amazon system. They're all extraction-based data systems, and they're designed to take information rather than enhance communal relationships. You can't make any money on communal relationship development. Sorry about that.
I disagree. I think people are willing to, people missing community. I noticed there's a lot of buildings here in Miami that the rent is way more expensive than very similar buildings. And it's way more expensive because there is communal programming at these places where they have a dinner once a week and meetings where they gather to make decisions together, and sports activities and things like this that create that sense of community. And I think problem solving is one of those really, really powerful community building experiences. But yeah, great question, Rose. I think it would be actually very smart to add that to the framework. Specific skills that we consider to be essential for the survivability of a place. Things like electric, things like plumbing, obviously food growth, veterinary, right? One of our passions is like a community that has an animal sanctuary. So having veterinary skills, understanding what medicines for animals and also obviously for humans, medicine, stuff like this. Super important. Maybe I'm going to add a to-do list there of create a skills, like a skills repository of important skills. What are the key skills?
But a very important point about that, and that's a very good idea, Oscar, is we cannot anticipate that we're not going to get wiped out through an EMF. And it may not be a bomb, it's going to be the sun. So we have to have a distributed system, and we have to assume our little micro community, our electrical system's going to get wiped out for a month, 2 months, whatever. And how are we going to access what we need, right? And it has to come from a shared community. So this is going to be a very critical thing around micro community relationships.
Right. The magic would be to have one human, like Noah's Ark, one human for each thing that is important, and they can pass down that knowledge. Right. The next bet is having books with the knowledge. Even the low tech solution is sometimes the best solution. That becomes the most long term.
I think distributed is the best solution. So it's multiple and redundant.
Maybe like rotation of services, like even if you're not the plumber, you work with the plumber. Even if you're not necessarily a good plumber, you're there to just learn about the plumbing.
Right.
And not make it as preemptive, it's better to pre-treat a disease before it happens. So in that sense, it could be more of a play than work and a labor. So
that's true, but that requires a behavior change, because we have a society right now is I'm too busy, I can't help them. Best of luck, buddy.
Yeah.
So that would have to change.
Well, I think that's because of the specializations and people
right. I was about to bring that point up, Eric. Yeah. We're in a society where it's been rewarding the specialists at things. And that's gone, I feel, to such an extreme, that there's people turning one bolt on the machine of society, and that's all they get really good at it, and they make a lot of money for doing it. But it's nowhere near the knowledge you need to actually thrive and live in society. So that's unique.
Hey, Jaden, it looks like you're chomping at the bit. You want to jump in?
I don't want to take it too abstract, but I just think that we can't look at these problems in isolation. Like they're going to be part of systems. And we're talking about it just with this one thing. But back to what Vic and Rose are saying, this is going to be needed to be integrated into how all knowledge is shared through communities, not just at the local level. So I think we don't just need to talk about redundancies in terms of at the local, but also of how we're integrating like as a whole overall. And like I see community organization important for what interests and skills and things people have to contribute so that there can be passing down of knowledge even not at that same locale. Obviously we do have to have things in place for when there are emergencies, and maybe there's some type of like swapping network where people go and travel and train other places. But I think the point is that we need to be relational at multiple levels to be able to share all the knowledge and not just have it as a manual. There needs to be some type of community structure surrounding that type of knowledge transfer.
Yeah. And it will change what IP means, intellectual property, which compresses it and isolates it, right? We have a silo society now. How do we do what Jaden's talking about?
Yeah, I think Eric's idea was good of like, or I don't know who said this. Who was it that said like a training program where like you shadow the plumber a couple days a week, and that at least, in the worst case, plumber leaves or whatever, at least someone knows how to do the basic stuff and can go from there. I think that's a really great, data solution.
Like it's like the when you have like a community farm market and everybody's growing tomatoes and carrots and potatoes, but one person has the day where they bring in their tomatoes. One person has the day where they bring in their carrots. So like the market is still always having carrots and tomatoes and everything, but it's just like it's their time to share their product to the open market. And then we have that sense of play where it's just workshops, just like communal workshops for the knowledge commons of the community, like a
Right. A
rotational
knowledge commons. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So like that's a cool thing. A knowledge commons. Okay, nice. Cool. Knowledge.
And to your point, Vic, about like culture with this, I think that cultural systems need to be discussed and how contribution is like regarded and rewarded, right? Like if that's part of what social status like needs to be reintegrated as of like how are we contributing, like what skills can you bring to the community? I think that needs to be part of the system, which I know may align with your affinity mapping stuff. So
social status. Cool. Yeah, giving social status for skills. That's an interesting way, like that kind of falls into the last category, which is gamifying. Gamifying people's journey to know things and like integrate, and that's cool.
Wait, but I have a question about these rotating skills. Like, for example, if there's someone that is way more into specializing into one single subject, and there's the other person that is basically an interdisciplinary learner and actioner, I guess. So what do you do with these people? Like, would you force the specialized person to learn more stuff, or would you let them just like simply know their own thing? Like, for example, you have people that are just like, in a way, they just want to do one thing, and that's all they want to do.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts, you guys? Any ideas?
I agree with Justin on that. No, you let people choose. Like it may be a little chaotic, but I mean, in time, the continuity will appear. So, if someone's good at specializing at their task and they have an art skill and form and a talent to it, it would be kind of inappropriate to make them waste their time. Like trying to be if you're a computer tech and you want them to become a plumber, that's not really the goal. It's more like the invitation is there to learn at any time, and like, but then also it comes to mind is like the specialist may not want to train someone that's completely incompetent. Like they're just their whole mind. Like you can't make a musician into an auto tech. Well, I'm not going to say that either, but I'm trying to think of something that, because I just think it's so. I think anybody can do anything if they have the right mindset to it. But
Yeah.
Like we could probably use a little bit of like free market strategy, you know, where like we have an inventory of everyone's skills and we realize, oh, wow, we only have one electrician. Maybe we add like a plus value to the reward for shadowing the electrician and training to know at least the basics of electricity, so that in case something happens to the electrician, we at least have one backup. And we kind of create this gamified, incentivized model to shadow him and learn and make it a really open, right? I think a lot of people, it's not about they don't want to learn how to do something, but the fear of stepping into the unknown for most is one of the most challenging and like stopping things from actually doing something new. So incentivizing it somehow, and B, definitely creating a really the culture, right? The culture of that it's wonderful to learn new things, and there's someone that's willing to teach you if you're willing to learn. Yeah, definitely not making them do it. I don't think that's the solution.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say, and I'm a big 80-20 guy, right? So just giving people like the 20% of the whole thing that really is most of what you're going to deal with, and teaching that.
Sure.
Everybody becomes exponentially more useful in the community, but they didn't really have to like dedicate, 6 weeks to learn plumbing. Like it wasn't, you don't have to do that. Yeah.
Right. But they learn where the water valve is and that they have to turn it off before they do a thing.
And
Sure.
Shit rolls downhill. Yeah, all those things.
Yeah, right. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Go ahead, Tudor.
Sorry, I will be quick. What happens if, for example, you have too much of one skill and not enough of another?
Can you have too much of one skill?
It could be like, what if there's a lot of fishermen, for example, but absolutely no doctor or something? I don't know.
That's what I understand Oscar to explain. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Oscar, but I understood that you said to create incentives for the skills that are not really popular. A friend of ours had an idea for a community management tool that in the meetings on Monday, when you're checking in about the week and the tasks that are meant to be done, you kind of do popularity contest. Like, let's say there's plumbing job, nobody wants to do the plumbing, then the number increases, number of points or tokens increases on the plumbing job, versus everybody always wants to cook because it's a high reward job and it's pretty pleasant, then that's just 1 point. And based on that, you kind of incentivize people to grab the tasks or steward roles that are not as popular.
And that could change too over time. It's not like
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that could be reviewed. Let's say plumbing became super popular because it's 10 points versus 2 points. Then obviously it's gonna go down a little bit. And
once we have 3 plumbers, you reduce the, whatever the reward is. Maybe your reward is in a community, I don't know, you get more time in the bounce house.
Or more apples.
Yeah, or more apples from the garden, whatever it is. Yeah. So
it's 4:30. I just want to check in about the time because the main call runs for 1.5 hours. We still have a little bit to do on the board. So I propose we keep on going in the open space from 5:30 until 6:30. We're having an open space technology. And then we can just have that as the main room. And if any of you has... Hello? Hello.
Yeah.
Well, if any of you has anything that you want to discuss, a topic, a side topic, or something that you would like to propose as another breakout group, and there's other people that are interested in joining that, then we can create breakout groups for that, and we can just keep on going with filling in the solutions.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think?
So everyone feel open. When Theodora, you don't have to rush through your idea. We're kind of now in this open conversation about these topics as they're coming up. Will be nice to go through the remainder of these cards, but as a really pertinent thought, like Rose, what you just brought up about the skills has opened a really interesting conversation that I think my biggest takeaway is, and it hasn't been brought up in the framework, I realize, which is to have a skill inventory of the community so that we all know what everybody knows, and then we actually have a chance at knowing what we don't know. And that's super, super important. So
Yeah,
super grateful that you brought that up. Yeah.
And I think on the 80-20, like we could probably create a template of like, here's the 20% of the roles you're going to need in a community to cover 80% or more of the needs that you have. And like, so that you can go and attract those folks into your communities out of the gate. And then maybe even from there, you're building, standard SOPs or templates that can be used for each of those roles.
Yeah.
And then those can be adjusted to the individuals that come in and say, yeah, this is great. We can tweak it for our community. But I think that's an important component of all of this, is like creating a standard list of roles that likely need to be in an environment to create some harmonic balance, what I like to call it. And then having SOPs that, again, are templatized so that a community could grab them and rework them for their own environment. But generally, we could cover most of what they would need, so they're not starting from scratch.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I added that. Yeah, these are all really good additions to the framework that are like very specific. And as this framework expands, like this will be one of the items on the checklist that people need to accomplish so that they go, wow, I have full confidence that I have a solid plan for my community to thrive. So super good point you brought up, Rose. Thank you for sharing it. Yeah, go ahead, Theodora.
Yeah, just one tiny thing. There could also be announcements, right? Like if, for example, each community might develop in its own way, like maybe they're gonna become a wellness community or eventually, or something like, I don't know, people can find each other and kind of make a community out of themselves. But like there could also be call outs, right? Like from community to community, hey, there's like, we need this person, do you have this person, or like, do you have this skill of this kind of person? Like in theory, these whole places could be like, people could go from one community to another, right? Like if they're kind of like
definitely
there you go. Theodora, I like the way you're thinking. No community can survive alone without another community.
Right.
So this has to be this interconnection and this request, or whatever you called it, Theodora, which is part of the profiler that I'm developing. It's based on not just what you put out, but what you can bring in, and it balances based on the archetypes of what a community needs. So every community, I figured out, actually has these things that you gotta have, like Justin was talking about. Maybe the 80-20 rule or whatever is going to be really important. But the connectivity and the relational, this gets back to the relational piece, is how do I connect with Theodora, who's on the other side of the world, but she has what I need in order to fix, the toilet in my community, right? So building this network of relationships linked to information, but it's relational oriented, that somehow I get in contact with Theodora and say, hey, it sounds like you got some really cool, we befriend each other, right? I don't just extract data from you and information that I need, because we will not survive as a humanity if we keep doing this.
I like that idea of emergent specialized communities, where you have like the communities of the best dentists, or the communities of the best
exactly
doctors or something, and I don't know.
No, that's right. They will all have signatures that identify specialties of what they do or don't do.
And then you'd probably get like really good quality innovation coming out of those specialized, because it's like everybody's on the subject.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Really, really good points. I think, like, for sure, Theodora, one of the goals here in the pipeline is right? Step one, understand how to build a place. Step two, build a framework that helps us create our plan for building the place. Step three, build a place. Step four, have a network of these places that are all interrelated and supporting each other in, like, obviously Skillshare for sure. One of the main uses, maybe the builders all show up and help build one of the places. And then you rotate through, like space holders come and host events one of the seasons. And then the food producers come by and they set up the garden. And there's this cycle where it's like, you're not just doing it at your one community, but you're doing it at different communities, and everyone's in this like really beautiful exchange of skills and knowledge and resources in the best case. Yeah, that's definitely like the high level vision that I'm holding of like, okay, I know I'm here one step at a time to get to this, hopefully later on, network of regenerative neighborhoods all helping each other. And I think that's like the really exciting vision here. Yeah, go ahead, Rose.
So when you're talking about the toilet breaking and needing to contact someone on the other side of the world, how metaphorical are you being there?
Like maybe the toilet getting fixed is like a small thing that ideally you can figure that out very locally. I'm thinking more like, more planned where, there's a community that built their community and there's a bunch of builders there. And potentially you create a relationship with that community as your community's younger. And maybe you have a bunch of permaculturists and you know how to grow food. So maybe for a 3-month period or more, you plan to say, okay, send the builders to our community. They're going to help us design and build and like do that coordination. And in exchange, we're going to send our food producers to your community and they're going to train.
So I guess what was coming up for me when I was hearing this is there's a logic that says, just like in the co-op space, it's like, we want to have lots of co-ops. So this is like the solidarity economy. We want co-ops everywhere.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And then there's a problem with my solar panel or something. I want, electrician skills.
Sure.
There's a sense in which it's like, really, it's better if the person's next door.
Definitely.
And so I guess that for me, it's just a matter of clarifying. We want to replicate the community part where we want these whole systems that we're referring to here as a community. And there's also the sense in which there's a bunch of practices that we have that are really good in and of themselves. And let's say it benefits us if everybody around us has solar panels, whether or not they're in community.
Right.
And maybe this has all been discussed before. But I think what comes up to me is these kind of two different kinds of vectors. And it's not even two, like it's on a spectrum.
So I think a part of the answer to that for me is it's definitely important that we have as much of the skills as we need locally, like within our community or even like neighboring, this concept of a local cosmolocalism, which is we are locally as independent as possible, and we still have a thread to the rest of the world, right? If we expand that far, where if need be, we can at least knowledge share from a distance. Can you maybe elaborate a little more on what you mean by these two kind of poles or these two directions?
Yeah, I think it's just for me distinguishing what needs to be in community and what's a generic skill. Like, so fixing the toilet, fixing, the electrical part,
right.
That there are things that are particular to communities, and then there are other things that are part of infrastructure.
Sure, like
Like
services you
Different
can
kinds
hire
of
out.
infrastructure.
do you like my brain is going in this direction, like the shaman in France is going to be different from the shaman in Peru. Like the clown in England is going to be different from the clown in Japan. Like, but those are roles that are like absolutely necessary in a community. Like you need to have those cultural motifs of whatever it is in that community that makes the community like this is like the example I was listening to from a professor I listened to. He was talking about the difference between the Greeks and the Romans, where the Romans were more like the Greeks would like to go to the tragedy to everybody cries together and then the community is formed there. The Romans, they like to go to the Colosseum to scream and shout to see someone get chopped up. So, like those two different ontologies, like you can't get like a bunch of Greeks to enjoy the Colosseum. Well, I guess they would by crying with each other about it. I mean, that's a joke, but and maybe the Romans would get angry at the play. I don't know. They might storm the stage, you know. But like, so there's just different. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking of. Like that would be more of the thing where it's like those are the specializations. Like I'm not going to go find really good like kabuki or koi theater in America per se, but I'd probably have a better chance like going to Japan to enjoy that kind of theater. So like I'm not going to have the best kind of opera, but I don't know. Now things are so distributed in the
I'd
world.
like to share. I think, yeah. So, Eric, yeah, I agree. There's a different flavor for each of, let's call them the archetypes that exist. And this brought to mind one of the tools that we've been sharing with the projects we work with and that we consult. And it goes to answer your question, Rose. Yeah, it goes to answer your question, Rose, where there are specific skills that are community centric. This is an org chart that we have pieced together from just visiting enough projects in different countries, projects that are focused on different things, farmer community, technology communities, acting communities. And they always seem to need this circle of archetypes, right? Everything from the community management, which is, the community manager, the person who handles the accounting and all of the logistics. The community host, the person that welcomes new members and makes sure everyone feels at home. The space holder, the person that hosts the circles and makes sure that everyone is feeling good and held. And so this breaks into what we've, if you can see my screen here, it's like the different departments that maybe this is this kind of what you were touching on, Rose, where these are like community specific roles and responsibilities that, of course, you can always hire somebody from the mainland or from the town nearby to do some of these things. But these always seem to be the ones that more than likely have a responsibility to do every single day, right? You don't need a plumber to fix the toilet every single day.
And I think thank you for bringing this up. Makes sense. I think for me, it's the layer where there's connection to other regen communities, and then there's the integration, with the land and the neighbors. And that's all. And there's stuff in between because the nearest community might not be far and they might be far. So
sure. And I think that's one of the maybe like the value setters on each role is depending how far your access is to the next possible person that could do that. After a few years of like visiting projects and considering this, this is kind of like the core chart of what you need of positions that you need to consider.
And I think specifically in the area of technology, because it tends to be, the specialist. And what comes up for me is I used to be in IT before the cloud, and we had to go around and maintain systems, and it was very physical and very onerous to get around.
Right.
So we're talking about here, from taking things from the cloud and putting them in your closet, and that entails bringing more specialized skills to your closet. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. I think, the first step for us, we got into this space almost 5 years ago now. And so the first thing we needed to do was understand how how this garden works. And each garden is made up of multiple little pieces. And this is our best attempt so far at standardizing what the crucial, let's say, responsibilities and roles are. And it's kind of this chart and how they're all interrelated with each other in some ways. Again, potentially one person handles energy and water and waste management. So it's not that each one of these boxes is one person. In the best case, it is, right? Depending on how big your community is. But I think this is the beginning of what that skill inventory looks like. And having that knowledge readily available and displayed is super important for the health of a community. So everyone knows what's important, what's missing, what maybe I can take on to learn and practice, etc.
Yeah, pretty much any community will have the non-negotiables, like the fields that are crucial. And usually you want to recruit members that live there. Like in most places, the maintenance person lives on site full time. They just need to be there all the time. And then depends on what other roles, a community manager or coordinator also probably needs to live on site. There's the people that you want to have within your residence that will maintain the systems that are vital to your community. And maybe you have a tech community where you just have 100 people working on their computer every day, working remotely. Then you probably want to have a person that can manage the network on site. So that will vary a little bit based on also what Eric shared. I like that analogy to like Colosseum. Yeah, it's going to be different flavor for each community, but yeah, based on that you kind of identify. And yeah, I think software can definitely optimize that process too, based on the description of your community. And yeah, you just kind of start with a skeleton and then you build up on top of that, and you assign a value, like priority to different areas of your community. And then you have a very clearly outlined, okay, I definitely need these 10 stewards of this area on site. Otherwise, we're not going to have a well-functioning community.
Yeah.
So you guys, I'm struggling with this chart.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's straight out of a corporatized manual. And I'm wondering, maybe it's just the language I'm having trouble with. Maybe if we just change the language.
Yeah,
but where is art?
You should put on a tie, Vic. Come on now.
Yeah, this is my new tie.
Get you back in corporate. Come on.
This, I think
marketing and outreach. I mean, venue management. I mean, maybe it is the language. I'm kind of yelling at myself here, but I just need to speak out loud to the angst I feel about this chart. I don't think this is what communities are.
Yeah.
So Vic, I think the answer to that question is this is like nuts and bolts for logistics, operations, that a place actually has the grounding to exist. And we came at it with a very functional approach, because I think what we've seen most of all is a group of artists and hippies that don't have the logistical prowess, and they lose their project and they fail. Whereas when it's a bunch of operators, it ends up becoming a business, and at least it persists until an artist shows up and brings that magic. I would say that position that you're looking for there is this one, the community space holder, combined with the events lead who holds the space for the community members to bring the magic, right? These are just like, imagine if you're watching a play. These are the people behind the scenes that are pulling the ropes and making sure that the venue and the seats are there so people can arrive. And then the community members are the ones that bring the magic. Well, I've seen that it's projects that come in saying, we're going to be this big creative art thing, and they only focus on that, tend to not work out so well, because A, they're forcing a creative thing that needs to happen more organically, but B, they don't have any of the logistical like planning done. And that for me seems to be the biggest failure for communities that we've seen in our journey so far, right? We've probably lived at least 20 communities. We've worked with most of them in like a pretty direct interaction. And this is our, let's say, most functional attempt to say, wow, these are the biggest gaps we've seen, and they always need to be filled.
Yeah, and it's also a vocabulary issue.
Sure.
I feel like we can dress it up in different words that will suit better the soft parts of our existence, and so there's things that we can learn from corporations, definitely a lot of things that we are trying to step away from, and organization skills are one of these things. So putting it in a very clear language that will apply to different projects, I think it's pretty important. So yeah, we can work on vocabulary, like for example, community manager. I prefer community coordinator. But again, I would question demonizing corporations completely, because there's definitely things that we need to learn. And as Oscar said, if we don't take a systemized approach to how we call things and how we handle things, like venue management, sounds pretty raw, and then that's pretty much what it is. If you have a community and you're hosting events, this is the venue, and you need somebody to take care of the venue. You can call the venue amphitheater or fairy tale dome, or something else, and it's still, you need a person to manage that. So yeah, open to changing the vocabulary for sure, and also wanting to be a system. And we had this conversation many times, like, oh, things will evolve, and we need to see how that goes, and you cannot quantify everything. And I believe that the truth is somewhere in the middle, and we need to use the language that speaks to also people that are not necessarily yet engaged in the community space, and also make it very easy to apply that skeleton to different projects.
Right, like we could definitely add like an art lead and these other things. And what we've seen, at least in my experience, what I've seen is with this person here, the events lead, planning events and at least holding the space, saying, hey guys, the activity room is empty on these days. Does anyone want to lead an experience this week? It leads to, maybe the analogy here is like our call structure, where if I just had a bunch of stuff that I was feeding to you guys and presenting and telling you, instead of saying, hey, let's talk about these topics, everyone bring your magic to the table. That seems to be usually the best case in projects that we've seen. But yeah, I definitely get what you're saying, Vic. I understand how that looks, and it looks kind of the way we made it, which is just, it's the logistics base core operation, and that's the beginning chart. From there, each community has their own flavor where they add specialists to each thing. And maybe you can see that in like this one that we did for a project in Berlin, where they had a culture and programming specialist. And maybe that's closer to what you're looking for, where they had specific cultural programming they were running, and there was someone that focused on that specific niche. So that chart is just the starting point to make sure your place can turn the lights on and open the doors and receive guests. The magic is missing. And I think maybe that's what you're observing.
Yeah, I think over time as a community develops, like that's where a DAO can just kind of be more of a flow state. It's not so like, yo, you're in this box and I'm in this box,
Right.
But as you start, you kind of need to create some boxes and operate within them. Mm-hmm.
Right. Like that's the structure we shared with people, and then they add their own to that. And I think that's maybe the magic that you're looking for more, where like our community would have the AI person and the database person, and then also the human focused person. That's you in my mind, Vic.
He's putting you in a box right now, Vic.
Yeah, exactly.
But like
The
we all
beautiful
have
box,
our
though.
we
It's
all have
beautiful.
our tendencies and the things that we enjoy doing, and
For sure.
right.
So there's a difference between creating a community that projects a framework that you need these things, and receiving what's coming in from the people who are joining. Again, we weren't able to do that in the past. We now have AI that can actually allow us to do that and create unions of people that will show where the community is strong and where it is weak, what is needed and what is not needed. And
Right.
am I anti-corporate? No, but I think we're past the point of the system. It's gotten very destructive, right? Most of us would agree with that. So we have to be careful using that language, because we will just repeat that. And this is where I get into language is critical to the manifest of something new or old. If we use old language and we don't know we're using it, we'll just repeat the same shit. And you will end up with a hierarchical community that you didn't even intend to make.
Yeah, that's true.
So we've got to just be very sensitive to language.
I agree. I agree with that. Like definitely in agreement with that. I consider that document not to, in no way is that like this is what a community is, but this is the nuts and bolts to be able to open the doors and host and do stuff. From there, everyone adds and customizes and makes it their way.
Yeah, you allow a little more emergence. People are afraid of emergence because they'll get it wrong, and this is where we have to, especially as facilitators and consultants that are going in, we're the startup that's going to offer a lot of very interesting things, right? I think we need to be careful to empower them, not direct them to what is missing or what they need before they even get started.
Yeah.
So, okay, thus I rant. I apologize.
Right. But, there's always this like people benefit from having a starting point that is a compilation of the best practices. And that's all that we so far have gotten to offer. Inevitably, Sonia and I and a few other, I think we are all starting to do this. We are going to create a blueprint for a community we find to be our ideal place to live. And that will have super custom bubbles and little departments for like, right? My passion is an animal sanctuary community where we have a clinic and we have a veterinarian, right? Jaden just left, but I'm happy to see a veterinarian here. I feel like the manifestation is happening and we're calling in those people. So that emergence comes from allowing people to do the creative things. And my goal for these tools that we've developed so far, the framework, that org chart, and a checklist of things they need to figure out, is that they get to do the emergent stuff without getting stuck in the practical logistics stuff. At least they have a starting point for that, for those things. So yeah, finding the happy balance between those things is super important. I agree. Okay, guys. So it's 6 o'clock here in Miami, and we have a few minutes left to go through. We have these topics left. Maybe we'll just like run through them. Does anyone have anything they're excited or have seen or feel very passionate about wanting to share about the topics of large language models, AI, robotics, IoT sensors, 3D mapping, blockchain, or gamifying? I think the gamifying one, we came up with a very cool one for like gamifying needed skills. I think that's super important. Yeah, Rose, thank you very much for bringing that up. That's a really good one. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to? We're kind of in the open space now. These are just some topics to kind of like lead that conversation in case anyone's wanting to chat about that. Feel free to add cards, share anything you'd like. IoT sensors, like for IoT sensors, I'd also like to add, I want to get everyone's thought on this. One, I would say what seems to be a very minor problem, but it can have its like very negative effects is in every community I've ever been to, someone puts something in the fridge with their name on it and it gets eaten. It happens here and there, not always, but it seems to be a little issue, where like maybe the person just didn't see it or whatever it is, And so one of the solutions I've always thought is like, oh, the kitchen should always have a camera. So when something goes missing, everybody knows who it was. And maybe it's just like enough of a deterrent. How would you guys feel about a kitchen that has a camera just to keep an eye on things? Like for accountability.
I'm in.
We've been to the same communities.
Yep.
I have a joke about a missing toothpaste, but I
Yeah.
want to keep it as an inside joke for the future.
Oh, okay.
So, but basically, the toothpaste went missing, and then after a big hubbubaloo, left, came back, and the toothpaste reappeared.
Reappeared,
But
sure.
didn't have to blame any one of the other parties. But any one of the other parties could have taken the toothpaste for their own reasons, which
Yeah.
I would like to go into all the detail, but I can't here.
Okay.
So, but you can't do that with food. But you can, like, did the same meal reappear like a day or two later with a new name on the same name, but on it? I don't know.
No, but like
No, it was just eaten out of
yeah,
spite. They were
the
like,
person the person mentioned it happened twice, and then that third time they brought it up. But then after they brought it up and we had a community meeting about it, it stopped happening.
Oh no, it happened again, actually. It happened again, but the issue there was that the supermarket and in grocery store for snacks, because the snacks were missing, was quite far away, at least half an hour away. So maybe that was the issue. In the community that I'm staying in right now, it's more of a co-live house. There's a rule that you can take whatever doesn't have a name on it, but you need to replace it within a couple of days, and it's been working pretty well. I don't really have a lot of issues here. I don't think we had a lot of issues, but also the supermarket's very close, so maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, it's more accessible there. Okay, yeah. Does anyone want to add anything to any of these topics? We have someone that just is jumping on the call right now. Maybe they have something.
I wanted to say a super funny thing. Like I saw this guy that was always complaining that, oh yeah, the roommate always eats the food, and then he made his own food extremely spicy so that he could. Yeah.
Right. There's always solutions. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, all the power to him, honestly.
well, I was talking to my friend about that concept earlier, where in certain groups, like everybody splits the what we get. So when we get something, we all split it equally. And he was like, "That's where the term like thick as thieves comes in, because everybody's like, it's just a different ontology thinking." But then like in my situation, maybe I'll get like when we go to the store, I'll only get like a few specialized items, and then there's like enough like love and respect in the community where it's like, I'm not gonna touch that. It's like the only thing they got. So it's like it's a weird balance of like finding like that's a part of the fun though. That's part of the play. Like taking things like really seriously. Like I've seen people like lose it over that very scenario where they really just can't. Like it happens once and then they're like, I'm done with this. This is crazy. Yeah, like you know what I mean. So it's like
Yeah. Well,
it's
it kind of leads to a bigger question, right? Like if people don't honor small things like that, there's a fear that they won't honor bigger things. And I think that's what happens to some people in their mind, and other people it's just like, oh, it was just a banana or whatever. So for them, it's like
maybe
not
they're like
consequential.
testing your resolve to be like they want to see something about you, but they want to see how you react to something happening. So
Potentially.
yeah, so it could be like one of those like, I can't ask the person directly, but if I set up this situation or environment, so like,
Right.
like the fear of communication could be one of those issues too.
Sure. Yeah. So I brought this up just as a thing that came to mind for IoT and sensors. Like a camera is a sensor. Cameras for accountability. I find that to be like, you know, kind of work. Some people don't love to be observed all the time, and they feel it like infringes on their property, on their privacy. So I was just maybe hoping to get a little, how does everyone feel about that kind of scenario there?
I've heard of cameras inside refrigerators just to reduce the amount of time you open the door. So that's sort of a side benefit if it's just in a case of, but yeah, I mean the trust thing is the major one, and that's hard.
Right. Building trust and building kind of that kind of
That's right there in the word. It's building trust. Like trust is not a guarantee. It's something that's developed over time. Like
Yep.
I think there's a big misnomer, like especially in American, God we trust on the dollar. But there's a lot to that. There's a lot of layers to that. But like overall, like trust has to be built over a period of time. And then like there's like when you lose trust, it's so much harder to gain it back. So
Right. The challenge is
or it
that
might be very
trust
easy.
is easily built in small human containers, like small scale communities, because you know everybody around you, and that comes easily in bigger communities. That's a challenge. That's the challenge. In society, surveillance, it seems to be surveillance and then law and potential consequences to your actions is pretty much the only thing that keeps big human containers running in a semi-peaceful way.
Okay, so I want to retouch on the high level topic again, right? Today's call was on technology and how we can integrate different kinds of, advanced solutions, advanced being, computer based, energy based, but we came up with some awesome, low tech versions as well that are important. From those low tech ideas is how we start developing these more high tech solutions. Yeah, I'd love to ask for everyone's reflection on this topic overall. Uh, are you more prone to live in a high tech community or a low tech community? I think these calls are really important for me in that I definitely have on my agenda, on my timeline to design a place, design systems for places, and integrate them. And so having calls with individuals, all of you guys, and all of your desires or things that maybe are not so appealing to you is really valuable to understand the psyche of others, of like why yes or why no for certain things. So yeah, I think the high level question here is, how do you feel about high tech communities? What are some maybe like hard yeses for you or hard no's? Like I definitely wouldn't want to live, like for example, I definitely wouldn't want to live in a place that has a robot and does some of the chores as a robot because I'm scared of robots taking over or whatever. I'd like to put that question out there and see what you guys have to share.
Well, go ahead.
I always go back to the Amish, for some reason. But I was listening to Singularity FM, which is one of my favorite podcasts, and they were discussing about the singularity idea that Vic was like, oh, I can't stand the singularity thing. But it was something to the effect that the people that experience high technology first are the ones that are going to have the most negative effects. The people that take the longest time to get to high technology are the ones going to be most prepared for it overall. So, like, when you say low tech, high tech, I think like mid tech is like, and it comes to that tradition thing. Like, people like tradition because it works in their space. But like emergent culture, it can be worrisome. And I think of that as like my weird Baltimore County accent. Like, the more I stay in one area and the more I want to be creative with my slang, the more miscommunication it can present. So
if I go into the wrong environment and I do speak wrong, it can cause me a lot of trouble. So that's the first-hand experience thing. So I'm just thinking that it's like when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So that's my input there.
Like assimilate the culture as much as you
Yeah,
can.
be adaptive. Be adaptive.
Okay, good perspective.
Mhm.
So a couple of things come up for me. One is, I mean, both have to do with systems and the entailment of how much tech we use, whether it's, on the low side or the high side. And one is, what kind of dependencies are we, supply chains, skills, the whole thing. Like we're
Yeah.
dependent on this mesh. So there's a set of entailments. And the first one is material, like what happens if, there's certain kinds of collapse in different places, like we saw during COVID. We saw material, what we're seeing now with wars.
Right.
So part of that reflects back on what is the purpose of the community. I guess, some people might say, well, this is a lifeboat, but other people might say, oh, we want to be regenerative. And I haven't heard any discussion so far in this community yet about the impacts of these technologies. So, whether it's footprint based or what have you, is how it's one thing to be regenerative in the activities here, but it's a little bit like emissions calculations. It's like, are you talking first order? Are you talking second order?
Right.
Or scope? I'm using the wrong words. Scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, scope 4. So what are the ripple effects of using, Vanessa Andriotti talks about the blood minerals in the device that I'm talking to you with. And
Right.
so, okay, what's the, the chain? And so one is about thriving and surviving. And then the other one is about what the tech that we're using, what's the provenance, right? So two aspects.
Yeah, I see that. Have those thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very important conversation that we didn't really have. I think that's where Oscar's question is coming from. What would your preference be and why? I think we don't really understand yet what are the implications of the technologies that are evolving or even evolved so far. We can observe, like we can observe our attention span going lower and lower. I was looking at a child that's like maybe 2.5 years old, a couple of weeks back, and he was just watching short form videos. He doesn't speak yet, which is also interesting to observe that this is the age that he's supposed to already be sharing some sentences. And just, thinking about how his focus will be in the future, I can see my focus being affected by the use of social media and short form content. Also, the lower critical thinking, because we all use AI, or most of us use AI to just, sometimes I don't even think, I just ask it because it's just became my second brain. Like phones are pretty much the extension of our hand at this point. We get anxious when it's not around us. So we can see these things. We're going to probably see more. I definitely don't want to demonize technology. I would like to keep on observing and then implement changes based on what I observe. But there's definitely a thought in my head that there's some things that we cannot really stop, and so we need to adapt. Like completely demonizing technology, some communities do that, and we see that it's not actually that beneficial for them. Just we need to maintain critical thinking and try to adapt, and then observe and reiterate and observe and iterate. So yeah, that's probably it's an ever evolving journey, but it's a crazy time to be alive for sure.
Yeah, and I just want to qualify. I'm not I'm not in the demonized camp. What I have seen is, to name Vanessa Andreotti as just one, I mean, she did come up with a document that was a very thoughtful way of approaching it. And so some really thoughtful, just mindfulness more than saying, I agree with you that it doesn't help to demonize it just, but I think as when we do land acknowledgements, and it's a custom where I'm from, and I haven't seen it here, but what I appreciate about it is it does provide a kind of centering and an acknowledgement of my materiality and my gratitude, but also my responsibility to the place where I'm situated right now. And so that some people manage to expand that and say, yes, and the device that I'm using, and I don't like that particular person, like went way, like, has really long land acknowledgements and it accounts for all these things. I'm advocating for thoughtfulness. So we might say, well, we'll use it, but we won't turn it on all the time automatically, just as a matter of course, right? And that I'm suggesting that a part of your project be to foster that kind of thoughtfulness, and along with the frameworks of here's the org chart and who does what, and here's what you need, like with all the checklists, that there might be one thinking about how are you going to use technology in a thoughtful regenerative way, as opposed to, right? Like what is the ethical approach to technology as well as the practical, oh, you need skills or what have you.
Yeah. I agree. Being aware of, right, the provenance of so many things, right? Like you said, the minerals in our phone are like sweat camps in some places, potentially, and just the clothes most people are wearing are, sweatshop garments.
Muted. Yes. Yeah.
So to be aware of that, it is a very important piece. And I think that's I think where this question came from of like, what are the apprehensions that we have? Like, we know all the beautiful stuff tech can do. And it's also important, right? We live in a polar world where as awesome as something is, there's also a dark side to it. And so to be acutely aware of those things in all the ways is a very important conversation to have and space to be held for those things. Yeah. Agreed.
Right, and not only that, I'm really grateful you're bringing that up because it actually should be a vital part of the framework is having some both like workshops that can be held or just maybe like principles for the design that that have included, just the nurturing of critical thinking and just, going through the thought process anytime you make a decision, what are the repercussions of that decision, and maybe setting up priorities. Like, okay, we can sacrifice comfort of using a specific technology, and we're going to spend more time doing that, but because the consequences are so high, we're going to choose not to. Like, it also needs to be like, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, we need to be thinking about that, and the other one, which is like pretty much a challenge of that we're trying to solve here, is how do we quantify that? How do we codify these things into something that can be used by people at scale? So I'm interested to know. I would like to find the research that you were mentioning by Vanessa Andreotti. I don't know where that is, but if any of you has any.
I'll send there's a book online that I don't have it right now and it takes me a few minutes, but I'll send that to you. Actually, I'll put it on the Mira board.
Okay. But yeah, if you guys have any tools that or frameworks or workshops, exercises that can be done in order to maintain, the thoughtfulness that you mentioned, critical thinking, then that would be like that needs to be part of the educational process for young people too now in the age of technology, instead of, you probably a portion of the knowledge that we're consuming is going to be reduced because you have that machine that can answer any question for you. So there will need to be some other classes or subjects that actually teach us thoughtfulness while using technology. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, I'm adding that as a takeaway section on the board.
Well, yeah, and someone else brought up the Amish, right? Where they have a thoughtful approach that says, how does the use of this technology affect the relationships in the community? So, I mean, whatever the frame, that's their framework. The one here might be different, but just to say there is a screen, it's not indiscriminate, come on in. Like,
Sure. So adding a screening, right? Screening process with technology. I'm adding this screening process for integrating technology and how much we integrate it, how dependent we like allow ourselves to be on it, again, with the fear of what Vic said, the solar flare that takes down the internet. And if we're so dependent on that, how can we survive? Well, right. The goal is resilience in these kinds of projects, and knowledge resilience is super important. As
Yeah,
well as other things.
yeah, go ahead, Eric.
I like the idea that AI is a magnifying glass on someone's own mind. So, like, if I have a disposition to critical thinking, then I usually find it's like I'll put in a prompt. It's like, okay, I know that, I know that, I know that. But then I like when I get the AI to start asking me questions in the prompts, and then like trying to answer the question with a question. Because if I give it an answer, it's gonna like sometimes I have to give it an answer because I can't think of an appropriate question to ask. And then that's where my like that's where I have to work on my own mind. But that's like it's not a good place to be for some. Some people it's probably good. It's not necessarily like conducive to. It can be good for your mental health, but it can be bad for your mental health. So
yeah, that's
finding that
a
balance is
cool
important.
idea actually to have. Yeah, I can imagine that in the name of resilience, as we're talking about mostly hardware resilient system, we're going to have like our own LLMs and our own roles that are, programmed by us into a specific narrative. So that could be one of the elements of the design that they're just prompted to prompt you back or review your knowledge so you don't lose the ability for critical thinking. And also we were talking about skills and what are the roles that are non-negotiable for communities. So for that point, Rose, it probably needs to be a non-negotiable to have like a psychologist and a sociologist or somebody with that background that is specifically interviews community members and looks at, okay, what is the phenomenon happening because of the use of technology? Are we losing thoughtfulness? Are we losing critical thinking? And then yeah, just having a person that stewards that part would be beneficial.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Any other like closing thoughts on that, you guys? Technology overall for community development, design, build. I think we're like at the end of the time. We've been here like 2 hours. The time goes by so quick, and I don't even realize sometimes. Thank you for checking in on the time earlier, Sonia, and now this other hour like blew through. I didn't even realize.
I just want to share that I am really grateful for women showing up to that call. There were more women a little bit earlier, and we had that conversation that, yeah, we have maybe like 10-20% of women on the calls. And why is that? How we can improve that? Because we definitely need more feminine voices. So I'm happy that there were more women today tuning in and speaking up. That's nice. So if you have any female friends or any friends that matter, please tell them they are requested.
I wanted to say thanks for the rom-com recommendation, Rose. I'll have to check that one out.
There
French
are a
film.
bunch of remakes, like because it's a great story, so that it's been remade umpteen times. But I think that's the original.
Okay, I'll have to. I looked it up on YouTube. I can't find it for free, but I'll find a way. Yeah.
Cool. Cool, you guys. Yeah. So I want to share as well. We'll be hosting the call next Thursday. That'll be the next steps in the tech call. We're creating a bit of a dashboard to share what we're working on, what we'll be working on. This is if you guys are curious and want to explore that a little more. Right now, it's on the board. If you zoom out of the board and you look here on the right side, this column here is the tech calls that we're having. On the left is the theoretical topic calls, and on the right is like the specific tech stuff that we're doing. And down here, the green and the blue column are kind of the summary of what's needed and what we want to be working on. Always open to perspective, and we're going to be doing this open source. We'll be sharing the repositories publicly on GitHub. So any way that you'd like to share your ideas, get involved, even work a little bit with AI and development and stuff, we're going to be hosting those calls continuing on Thursday. Next Saturday is our first kind of like overall recap call, where we go over the 12 weeks of calls and we share what we've learned, what we have as a result so far, the updated version of the framework. I'm going to upload all of these transcripts during this week, and we'll see what we have. And that'll be the presentation next Saturday, a bit of an open discussion on where we are so far and what comes next. My priority is some of these digital tools. I see they'll really support most of the projects that we've been involved with over the years. And honestly, starting to build the infrastructure for the tools that I would need when I'm imagining creating a community that is unique to the things I'm interested in, and sharing that with others. So thank you guys for participating and being here. If you guys are not in our Telegram, I would invite you to join the Telegram. Rose, I don't know if you're in there or if you enjoy using Telegram. I'll share a link in the chat so you can see it.
You know, I think I tried joining last time and I had a tech issue. That's funny.
Okay, yeah, it happens. It happens. Yeah, the tools are functional and tricky sometimes. Telegram's a little complicated as well. There's so much stuff going on in there usually. The major key there is to go to the settings and create folders. In settings, there's an option that says like, oh, create my folders, chat folders. And then you can put like things that you want to keep up with. Like I have one for friends. I have one for regenerative projects. I have one for stuff in Berlin when I'm in Berlin. Maybe that'll help. But Sonia, can you share a link to that real quick?
Yeah, I just dropped it.
Okay, sweet. Cool. So yeah, if you want to try again, feel free to message me privately. I can walk you through it. Rose, I think your perspective is awesome. As like someone in tech, a lot of the things you shared really hit, you know, added like important notes of something that I realize is missing in the framework and things like this. Theodora, I'm excited. Hopefully you, as you open up and have other things going on, to pick your brain on the AI things and how we're looking to integrate that would be very cool. Yeah, you guys, thank you for a beautiful call. Happy Saturday.
Thank you.
Happy Saturday!
Yeah, happy equinox.
Yeah, right.
Much
Also
love.
equinox. Yeah, we're jumping into spring.
Celebrate. Yeah, spring forward. Here we go.
This is technically the start of the year.
Here we flow. It
on the
is.
Gregorian calendar. Enjoy your day, you guys. Have a good
gang. Much
Wait,
love.
one last question about this this part of the shared screen. This is also on the mirror, right?
Yeah, on the right side
is on the mirror. Right. If you see, like, if you zoom out a bit, you can see on the left we have the Saturday calls, and on the right we have the Thursday calls.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And on the right is this list. I think one of the main things that we're focusing on, that we're trying to figure out, is how can we have a shared like dashboard so everyone's on the same page, Right now it's the Miro board where we're sharing stuff, but we're going to evolve this. I'm considering building something using Claude Code as like a simple dashboard that shows active projects where maybe a list of like ideas and then projects that it's pretty much going to be a Kanban board, right? Like it's going to have its own column and things that are being worked on for each one of the projects. Could be a solution. If anyone has other solutions, I'd love to hear them. Right now, Ian, Vitaly are doing most of the lifting. I've caught up over this week and set up my own Claude Code and my own agent harness. So I have a full-time agent running in a cloud server now. It's pretty exciting. I love it.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I'm using OpenClaw. It's like I message it on my Telegram. I shared an idea the other day while Sonia and I were cooking for a kitchen co-op. I brainstormed with the Telegram chat, and then I said, yeah, go ahead and make that website. I made it a Vercel account and its own email account. It set up the page, built the page, launched it, and sent me a link to the Vercel page of like a thing. And that was just my first like mini conversation where I tested it. So sky's the limit. I'm feeling excited about it.
Cool.
I'll be doing a lot more. I'm pretty much going to be focusing on AI stuff for the next couple of months. So Theodora, you're up for it. We're going to be kind of working on this stuff a lot. Would be cool to get your like fresh college brain on this.
Yeah, of course. I'm gonna check it out. I am actually just wondering if anybody wants to have a shared subscription for Claude, for example. I don't know if anybody is in need of a partner. I am here. Please hit me up.
Cool. Yeah, I have like the $20 one. So far, it's like been pretty good. The $20. I've only run out of credits a couple of times. When I was
you need the 200 enterprise one.
I'm like considering
that is the one you need.
Right now, the solution that Ian introduced me to is I'm using Minimax, which is a Chinese version. It's just as smart, the 2.5, and they say it has a little bit less of a personality. Mine has a pretty great personality because I've given it a soul.md file. So it has, it's like, and Minimax is like 10x less the price. So I've gone through like millions of credits that if I was using Claude, it would have been like hundreds of dollars. And I've only spent $25 on Minimax so far. So,
impressive.
And it's available on open, what is it? I don't know. There's one where you can switch between all of the models. What's this thing called? One second.
Quite a few of those now.
Yeah. Where you can like Open Router. Open Router has
Open Router,
Claude Code and Minimax, and
I use Open Router.
Right. That was good. So let's share some ideas. I could be open for that, Theodora.
Yeah, I never heard about Open Router, but we'll definitely check it out.
They basically get so much volume that they get cheaper costs through the API, so they pass that on to
right. You pay them for a service, and then you do calls through them, and they route to whoever.
Yeah.
So jump in the chat. See any questions, anything you want to follow up on? I'm going to be really active in the next few days as I'm building stuff. I'm even thinking about adding my agent to the chat so that they can talk together and see how that goes.
So much movement. I love that people have been doing. People have been doing stuff. It's just popping up everywhere.
Right, so much stuff. Like my YouTube and my Instagram is literally all like, I'm blown away that now the trendy thing is to talk about GitHub repos and share like open source code bases that are available. Like that's my whole feed now.
You mean it's not the latest Netflix series that launched? Come on.
Dude. Like what a miracle. Like I'm seeing guys my age. I'm 38. They're like, yo, Claude Code is the new Call of Duty. Remember when you used to come home in high school and play Call of Duty all night until you had school the next day? This is what Claude Code is for people now. And I'm like, wow, that hits.
In a way, I think our world became crazy enough that it's just simply entertaining by itself.
Exactly.
Like everyone is like, oh, I wish I could build software, but that costs $50,000 to hire a developer. Like, no, it doesn't anymore. It costs $20 a month. And like, you can get it. So yeah, I think
it was Halo for me.
It was Halo, yeah. Right. Okay, so you guys, happy Saturday. Thank you for the time.
Likewise.
In the chat, I'm going to be interactive. Message, let's chat, let's catch up. I'm excited to hear more.
Thanks for facilitating, both of you guys.
Yeah, you guys.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Happy Saturday.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Ciao.